Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to Jeff's Journey. In this episode, I will cover how the interview went for the reading interventionist position at the elementary school. But first, we'll cover that like somewhere in the middle, maybe. Interesting thoughts on China. So I won't be able to publish this in China. But I was talking to the guy, David Bolton. And he runs a literacy education thing online. When you go on my website, jeffreyalexandermartin.com, which I've been thinking about other website names for that, but I haven't come up with a good one yet. The obvious one they're taking, right? Like jeffmartin.com, obviously taken. That's why I have the super long one. But when you go to my website, there's this thing that loads called the PQ app, and it shows a little Q that when you click on any word on my website, it'll help you sound out the word, which is really cool, and then you can go through definitions and synonyms and all sorts of stuff on there. Awesome. Learning Stewards is part of the company's for, and that's part of another company. There's several organizations involved. And I was talking with him. He spent a few months in China when he was an advisor to like a senator. Something like that. But it was a while ago, and his impression at the time, this is 2000 something in the singles before 2010, was that China was still expanding in freedoms and economic growth, obviously. And they have expanded even since then a lot in economic growth. But the freedom is going back the other way, like it's restricting, which is very interesting, especially online. And then I had a very interesting conversation with one of my students, Liming is his name, about Mao. Because I'd mentioned Mao to him before. Well, we were talking and we were trying to have a normal conversation. Just discussion about what's happening, what's going on. It was Mao Day, so they were doing Mao Day stuff. And, I was kind of asking him what he knows about Mao, and I was kind of flabbergasted because I was like, you don't know, like, Mao killed between 60 and 100 million Chinese people? And no, he has no clue that Mao ever killed anyone. So kind of interesting. But then I just kind of left it. I was like, okay, whatever, interesting. And I might have mentioned the economics of when he died and how China decided to implement more economic freedom, and that's how their economy grew, and that's why they have a lot of money now. But I'm not sure if I originally mentioned that or not. So, but he comes back today, and this, I think, was maybe a couple of months ago, and he's like, and I think Mao came up, not in the text, I think something he said, because we were reading something about technology, and it involved yurts, and then we were talking about the Mongolians, which is the other thing. Anyways, he mentioned that, and he was like, I asked my parents and my teachers and stuff, and they said Mao didn't kill anybody. It's like, oh, dude. Oh, dude. Can't just go around saying bad things about Mao in China. Oh man, I was like, sorry man, you brought up Mao. I didn't know I was going to go off on this thing. But yeah, the misinformation, if you want to say something polite about Mao in China, is insane. Insane. It's pretty crazy. And then the other thing that come up, because we're talking about yurts, and yurts were never really popular in China, but they were popular in Mongolia with the Mongolians. And another thing they never teach in history, it's so funny how limited the education is in China, right? Which makes you realize that education is probably quite limited in the United States, which is super obvious. They teach a bunch of things wrong on, seems like it'd have to be purposely on someone's part. In the United States as well, but China's pretty extreme. I mean, they're worse than the United States, but in the same direction. Another thing they don't teach is that the Mongolians conquered China. They don't teach like Kublai Khan came across the Great Wall and conquered China after Genghis Khan was not able to conquer China. So, really weird. And we talked about World War II, and he knows about the Japanese conquering China in World War II, and I think he knew about Tibet. I think he knew about China taking Tibet in the 1950s. I think he knew about that one. But it's very interesting. Alternative history, taught as real history. This is extremely common. Another thing, neck braces. I should have went and grabbed the neck brace. It's too far away now. It'd be weird for me to run to it. I tried one out, one of the big white ones. So the idea is that when I travel to Colorado or to the Bahamas for alligator wrestling or shark diving, depending on which one I do, I don't think that'll be as bad because it'll be a fairly short trip. So I got to travel out there, I got the activity, and I got to travel back. Both of them could take 3, 4, 5 days, right? Less than a week, we're talking. So I can have an adjustment, go do the thing, come back, have an adjustment. Might throw me off because of the travel and whatnot, and the activities. Definitely the activities throw my spine off a bit, but I'll adjust. It won't be that bad. The Europe trip could be longer. I would like it to be longer. I would like to maybe try an extended trip, and if things went well, then open up those contacts I had before and go over to Europe, France or Spain or something, and stay there for 3 months teaching as a private tutor, maybe something like that. You know, I mean, maybe that would work out. I don't know. It's a maybe. But one of the biggest issues I have is with the traveling itself. So even if I'm not driving, right, because driving has a lot of impacts, but, you know, maybe I could drive to Colorado, do the alligator wrestling, and then drive back. Colorado, crazy place for wrestle alligators. You'd think it'd be Louisiana or Florida, but the most intense Colorado or alligator wrestling place I can find in the country is in Colorado. And maybe that'd be fine to drive to Colorado and back. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. You know, maybe it would be. I don't know. But just on like a plane trip or even a train trip, one of the issues that I have with it is that if I fall asleep, which, you know, looking at a long plane or train trip seems, you know, almost unavoidable at some points. So you fall asleep and then, you know, your neck kinks or whatever it happens to be, and that will go very badly. I mean, you know, maybe I get lucky and it happens one time and I'm okay. Am I going to get lucky twice? No. Am I going to get lucky the first time? Probably not. So that's not going to work out good. So I'm testing out neck braces for this scenario. And the big white normal neck brace you see what like paramedics use and stuff. I got one of those, and I think it would work. Actually, I have to test it out more. I tested it out maybe an hour, a couple hours yesterday on the couch, just playing around with it. I didn't sleep in it. I have to test it out in a slightly reclined position, in a vertical position, awake, and then, of course, sleeping will be the next level of test. But I have another one on the way. So that one, you can order one of those cheap plastic ones. They use a lot of the medic stuff. Actually, a fairly decent one is adjustable up front and stuff, and relatively comfortable. It's $15 I found one for. So that's pretty nice. Which, they sell very similar things for up to $100. And this one was not bad at all. So it was a nice little find as far as money goes. It's nice when you're spending tons of money on medical experiments. You can spend tons of money, or, you know, sometimes you can spend $15. So that's cool. So I ordered another one, $50 this time. That should be here tomorrow, and it's a lot more discreet, which is cool because it'd be really weird, like sitting on a train cruising around Europe. That's the thing in Europe, right? If I was healthy, if I didn't have this issue to look at, what I would be planning is to visit all of Europe, right? Go to Europe for like a couple of months and try to travel around to as many different countries as I can within like 3 months or however long I could do it, and it'd be awesome, you know? But if I can't fall asleep, if I can't sleep on trains, it's going to prove near impossible. And I've been walking more, but I have some trouble with impact with that. But now the other thing that I'm working on arranging here is, or thinking about arranging at this point, and I might reach out to my KFS contacts, the global fuel syndrome groups I'm in on Facebook, and talk to those people about chiropractors. My chiropractors might be connected with some chiropractors somehow. I can send stuff to them. I have my medical images online. I can send them those links. But also making some stops at chiropractors in Europe, if I can kind of vet them beforehand. I looked at prices just in Dublin. I didn't look all over Europe. But I looked at 3 different places in Dublin and what the chiropractors would charge, and it would be about $50 for an adjustment. So, you know, it's not that bad. And if I could find someone somewhere that I was pretty confident in, then if I was traveling around Europe, I could make sure I stopped there to get an adjustment. And, you know, even if I got one good adjustment a week, I could probably go for quite a long while if I wasn't messing my neck up too bad with everything else I was doing. But there's more discreet one that's coming tomorrow, so it's it's like a metal frame, so it would stick down, it would go down your shirt, so you wouldn't even really see this. And it has like a metal bar with like a rubber coating to coat your chin. My beard's crazy. There's a beard competition this weekend at the Irish Festival. I don't know if I should enter it or not. I mean, I'm probably not going to win, but it'd be fun just to be in a beard competition, just to say I have been. But it has a metal frame that goes down into your shirt to support your neck. That's one of the main support areas. And then this part pushes up against your chin underneath with a plastic thing. So with my beard, you actually basically wouldn't be able to see it at all, probably, because it's small enough that the beard would probably just go over it. And then there's a strap that goes around the back of your neck then. And the biggest complaint about it online is it causes too much lordosis. Now in the first one, the big white plastic one that goes around, the issue with it, it's tall enough in back, between the back and the part that goes up on your head to stabilize your head, that I can't arch my back very much. I can't get very much lordotic curve on it, because it's meant to just like hold it straight, which is fine. And I can adjust the front up a little bit and get a little lordotic curve, but not too much. This one, the biggest complaint is there's too much lordotic curve. So not only could that not work out bad for me, it could work out good. We'll find out hopefully tomorrow with that neck brace. And I'll be playing with them for a while, doing experiments. All right, the interview. I know you've been waiting for it. I don't really know if you've been waiting for it. I've been waiting for it. And this is the interview for that reading interventionist job at Central Elementary. So I met 4 people. We're technically in the room. So there's Ariel, who's in charge of onboarding with AmeriCorps. There's it's a funny word, must come from the French, I assume. There's Grace, that's also from AmeriCorps, and she would be my contact person after I get hired, if I get hired. And then there was Cody, who is the principal of the building of Central Elementary specifically, and then there was Pam, who oversees the Reese Puffer district, all 6 schools in the Reese Puffer district for state and government programs like this, and this is one of them. So four people, nice little panel, and I was not the only one being interviewed. There was, as I was leaving, they already had someone else in the interview. I don't know how many people they were interviewing. So, but I said hi to the girl that was interviewing after me when I left, at least. And I think it went well. Yeah, it's so hard to tell with that stuff, like, because it's whether people like you or not, mostly, right? It's a tiny popularity contest, essentially, and we'll see. I'm pretty good at expressing myself in interviews with those types of interview questions and stuff now, I feel. But, you know, a lot of it will go on looks and stuff. Do they like a guy with a beard? I don't know. But we'll find out. Some people would prefer that. Some people would not prefer that. And it depends a lot on personal preference. So if I get that job, it would go from October. I already took the days off from teaching online, October 8th through 11th for the training program. And then I would start working on the school immediately, which would be cool. I have to arrange my stuff in October. Until we get to the daylight savings point, I actually have a 1-hour scheduling conflict between teaching online and teaching at the school because of transportation. Once daylight savings hits, China doesn't have daylight savings, then it'll be fine. Then I'll just have to teach 2 hours from 5 to 7 a.m. on Wednesday and Friday through the one company online, and then work from 8:30 to 4 at the elementary school. And then I only do teaching stuff through the other online company, 1 hour Friday night, and then a couple hours on Saturday and Sunday morning. And so that would be my whole working schedule. And then I have to rearrange my tutoring thing for the jail program I'm doing, the exit program, which has been going really well with my student there, or my learner there. And then this Sunday is my first meeting with my private reading client, so that'll be cool, Miles. So a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. If that interview did not go well, and I don't get the job, then, because the last question was by Pam, she asked me if I have specific experience sitting down next to 6 to 8 year olds and teaching them reading. A very pointed question, good question, and I don't, for the most part, other than here and there with people I know a little bit, right? It's not like I've never done a lot of that. I've sat down with adults more than kids, but most of my experience is online, and I want to move from online to in-person, right? Which I didn't say that. It was right at the end. Everyone was getting up to leave, and she threw out this question last, and I answered it like halfway. It was not my strongest answer. I'm bad at finishing, right? Like, especially speaking. Speeches have great openings, really strong middles, weak endings usually. And I guess this interview is a little bit the same, which is horrible, because the last impression is so strong. But what I should have said is that I do a lot of teaching online, and that's where all my experience is. But I want to transition to in-person because I think it's so much more engaging and interesting and just better. There's something lacking online. I mean, the whole world's moving online, and online's great for convenience, and it's great. I think it's really good. But in-person there's something to it. There's something different. There's something, I would say, better about actually being there. So I should have said that, and I did not. But if I don't get the interview, then I'll probably just start looking at these opportunities as soon as possible. We'll see how it goes. You know, over the last couple of years, my finances have not been good ever since the Africa deal, for other reasons I've expressed on here, but I'd spent a lot of money going to Africa, then I spent even more money trying to get out of Africa, which was all my savings, and I spent a bunch of money on medical stuff, and then I couldn't fully work because of all the medical stuff, and just so finances just got shot. And but you know, it'd be different if I had like a family, like a wife and kids. Then I would probably just work on working and getting like reasonable finances. But since I'm not, then I think it's reasonable to gather and collect life experiences. So that's kind of the plan. So if I don't get this job, which, you know, I think it's reasonable to assume I will get the job. I think it's reasonable to assume I won't get the job. If I do get the job, then I got to start setting up traveling and adventures and stuff for next May at the earliest, because the job will go through like the first week of May. If I don't get the job, I'm going to start setting them up as soon as possible, because, you know, let's go for it. All right, more health stuff. I've been cycling iodine on and off, and I think it's making a difference, but it's like not noticeably extreme. It's not like I take iodine one day and I feel good that day or the next day, and I don't take iodine for a couple of days and then I feel bad. It's like weeks. It like builds up and it builds down. And that's how I've been cycling on and off it. And it's hard to catch the pattern because the pattern is subtle. It's more subtle than other things, right? You eat some sugar, you eat some ice cream, right? You know it's not good for you, right? You can feel it right now, especially if you have issues. You can feel it, and you can feel it now, and you can feel it tomorrow, right? You can feel it in an hour. You can feel it. There's short time periods. You might feel it for a long time. You might feel it for a couple of days. You might feel bad for a couple of days, but it starts kicking in right away. The iodine supplementation is not like that. It seems to be a much slower gradient, much slower rate of change. So I think it is probably necessary, because my heart rate I've not been able to keep in check. This morning it was 101. I think yesterday it was 107. So it's resting heart rate, right? That should be like jogging heart rate. It's ridiculous. My heart rate before Africa was in the 60s, always. It's always somewhere in the mid 60s, and then Africa happens, the brainstem stuff gets worse. I didn't know I had it, but I had it, and then it got worse. Now it's 100 all the time, and I've gotten it down a couple of times, but I'm not sure exactly what's all influencing it. But I know that it's cranking all my hormones, and just the heart cranking like that, and it just destroys my energy so much. And I think some of that is my hormone, like my thyroid is burning out. It's running so fast, it's burning out the iodine supply that it's getting, right? It's getting some from my food and whatnot, but it's not getting enough compared to how fast it's trying to run. So I think iodine supplementation is actually a necessity. Then I've been having a lot of internal conflict on what actually to do on a daily basis. I've worked out a system of resolving that to a large extent, and I've had some success with it when I do it, but I haven't always done it because of internal conflict, which you should be. I'll use the system to resolve the internal conflict about the system, but I don't always do it early enough. I published a blog post on notes I've been keeping for the last couple of years, and just fairly recently, the last couple of months, I started calling it Theoconceptualism after a conversation I worked about with Casey, a friend of mine, and I was like, I've been thinking about stuff, I've been thinking about the word Theoconceptualism to call it, and he thought it was pretty good, and I was like, yeah, let's call it Theoconceptualism, and it describes it pretty well. And that PQ app on my blog when it sounds out Theoconceptualism, it sounds it out Theoconceptualism. Pretty darn close. It's a word I made up, right? So, pretty cool. I just notes. It was just kind of random. I've made new notes in the file since then, and haven't put those on the blog. That'll be for later. So it's not very well articulated. It's just notes to myself. And it was interesting. It's interesting how many views I've gotten on it. I think a couple hundred maybe. But the views are hard to check. I'm not sure how accurate those views are. On the blogger website, I don't think they're very accurate at all. I think they're way underestimated. So maybe dozens. Right? Maybe I've gotten dozens of views. And then I had two guys, contact me online in the same group saying I shouldn't use the word religion because I named the blog title post Notes on Theoconceptualism or Towards a New Philosophy and Religion, or Towards a New Religion and Philosophy, something like that. And they said I shouldn't use religion because it carries so many emotions and it creates in-groups and out-groups. I'm like, guys, if you want words that don't have emotions and don't have in-groups and out-groups, you're going to have to start looking at other species than humans, right? Humans would have to evolve into something other than human to start removing emotions and in-groups and out-groups out of them. That is some hard-built human nature in there. And that's, I mean, humans aren't the only one with emotions and in-groups and out-groups. That's all mammals and most other animals. So it's just completely impossible. And then what else? Someone else said something about it. Oh, someone else asked why Jordan Peterson was in there because he's just an alt-right Christian. It's like you apparently have no idea who Jordan Peterson is. I mean, I understand how Jordan Peterson got associated with the alt-right because the people on the left, which I hate that dichotomy, that left-right dichotomy, people don't even know where it comes from. It comes from where people used to sit in their legislature in France a couple hundred years ago. And the commoners sat on the left, and the nobility sat on the right. Now we have this left-right dichotomy that we do all of our politics on in America. Stupid, I think, but whatever. You got to use it to communicate with people. And so the people on the left didn't like Jordan Peterson because he was talking about free speech, essentially, or in non-compelled speech was originally what he got famous for. And he preaches against all of the, he talks against, he's a lecturer, and he's a psychology professor, and he talks against communism and the road they went down in politics, but especially in psychology, to move towards the whole horrible Soviet system to a large extent. And well, I mean, the left doesn't like that, right? The left, which liberal originally comes from libertas, the Latin, meaning freedom. It's funny that the liberals in America are against freedom, so very ironic. But they don't like Jordan Peterson because he's for free speech and non-compelled speech, right? He doesn't want you to be threatened. He doesn't want your life to be threatened to make you to say certain things, which seems obviously good to me, unless you're a fairly violent person, but most people aren't. We have violence inbuilt in human nature as well. Most of the people that are preaching peace are extremely violent, which is ironic but inevitable because it's extremely useful politically. So that'll always happen, and always has happened. It's funny how it works, and it's like you would just have to study a little bit of history to see these patterns. These are not hard patterns to pick out, but for the most part, no one does pick them out. I guess it's because no one studies history. I don't know. There's a history channel, but I think they play mostly reality television now. But the left called them alt-right so that they could make people not like them, essentially. But it's so ridiculous. If you've ever interacted with his content, you would realize that the alt-right hates him because, for the most part, right? Some people all over the place like him, and some people all over the place hate him. There's no one segment that has a policy. But he's for free speech, so the alt-right obviously wouldn't like him. But he's for free speech, so the left doesn't like him. So no political faction likes Jordan Peterson, but he's extremely popular among the people. which is very interesting because to a large extent the people are now oriented against the government as a whole on the left and the right, and then obviously media accentuates the differences in those political groups. So the people in the middle don't get a voice, don't have a voice, and never will have a voice, and to a large extent never had a voice, because no one cares. People want to hear the extremes, which makes sense. Let's see. Oh, something I noticed about myself, probably about a year ago. I have a hard time and almost cannot set the volume on anything, including the TV, the radio, on my computer, anything, on something that doesn't make sense. And what I mean by make sense, it doesn't fall in a 5 or a 10 or some other number that has a connection or a why behind it of why I would set it on that number for volume, which is completely irrational, right? Humans are, to a large extent, completely irrational. A small amount of rationality in there, and then they call us the rational animal. And it's not right psychologically, right? Like something's a little mentally off there. And I've really, over the last year, when I noticed it, I've really been pushing myself to do other things, but I still basically can't. It's kind of amazing. Like, I can set the volume on 42, feel really comfortable with that, because 42 is the answer to the meaning of life, the universe, and everything from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I can set the volume on 29, because I'm currently 29, but like 27, 37, like, if I was designing a volume system, they just wouldn't exist, right? You just jump from 35 to 40, like, pick one. It's either going to be 35 or 40. There's no gradient in between. I can't set it to any of those numbers. It's really weird of why, right? Why does that annoy me so much? Why can I almost not do it? I almost can't force myself to do it. I try to get out of my comfort zone to try to fight that a little bit and confront that a little bit, but it's really weird. Really weird. I feel like there's something significant going on psychologically there, but I'm not fully cognizant, and definitely not articulate on what it is. So, just a weird thing I noticed. Alright, I think that's all for now. So, until next time, which they're supposed to inform me within the next 5 days whether I got the job or not. And that'll depend on how fast I start planning adventures. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to at least hearing, and I'm looking forward to getting the job if I do, and if I don't get the job, I'm looking forward to planning the adventure soon. So I've set myself up so I can't fail, which is smart if I do say so myself. Till next time, Jeff out.